What about the old? Wasn't there an old adage that's going to eat away at your muscle? Is there any? People have said that all the time, right? There's like you never want to be hungry; it's going to start eating away at your muscle.
You'd have to go ahead, Doc. I'll let you handle this one.
That's a funny one because it's like, okay, so let's think about this for a second.
Hey, before we continue today, we want to tell you about our great sponsor, the Game Time app, Tim.
Didn't this football schedule just come out?
Just came out, yes.
Well, you better be on that app and get your tickets.
I got my eyes on some. Okay, I've never been to Lambeau. Bears play at Green Bay week 2. So I'm going to look there, last second drops. It's also a nice drive away because that's what Game Time's great at. It's like the last second ones. When you go on a whim, they got the best price drops right before game time. The Bears Patriots Monday Night Football, I think that'd be cool too. So I got my eyes on a couple of games in that new NFL schedule.
Good games. Good games. Mm-hmm. I won't say competitive games. I'll say good games.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, you got that right. So the Game Time app was created by fans for fans. Game Time is a new ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. Like I said, they cracked the code on how to score deals on last-minute tickets. The purchase process takes 2 taps and 10 seconds, and once you buy your tickets, they're delivered directly to your phone. No printer needed. The app also allows you to easily share tickets with friends via text, so you can get into the game seamlessly. Skip the hassle, enjoy the moment, download the Game Time app, go to the account tab and create a login and redeem code REBUILD for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Go do it. All right, bang, bang. Welcome to episode 3 of Rebuilded with Tim Grover, with Eddie. Tim, how you doing?
I'm excellent. If you're doing excellent, I'm doing excellent. That's it.
Yeah.
If you're not, we need to shut all this down and you and I need to talk.
Yeah, I'm doing well. We're going to get into my whole weekly responsibilities, or weekly, what are we calling it? Weekly activity to do or something like that?
Yeah. Hey, listen, you can call it whatever you want, but it's funny. I could just tell just your energy level and your demeanor that these changes that we've literally talked about for the last 2 weeks, they're taking effect. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's a lighting that's going on in here, but you got this glow going on about you.
There we go. I got the
Maybe
glow.
It's a new moisturizer. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. But yeah, so we'll talk about that because first we're going to talk to Dr. Jason Fung. He is the king of intermittent fasting. I watch him a lot on YouTube. People who are really into the health and wellness, fitness world, you guys probably know who he is. I had a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah. Simple. That's the best way to describe what he does. I didn't say easy.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't say easy. All right. He makes the information simple and easy. That doesn't mean the program and the results is easy. Mm-hmm. It is easy. All right. The information is very simple and it makes sense. People are like, it can't. You'll have to look at it. You'll look for reasons for it not to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. So we'll get into that. We'll get into how my week went with last week, and I just have questions about your week first. So you were with a client all week, right?
I was in Denver, Colorado. And the funny thing about Denver, Colorado is I've never been there.
Really?
In this month.
Oh, okay. I was like,
so I've always gone, during either November, December, January, or February during the cold months, because that's when the bull season used to be. That used to be one of the road West Coast trips. And it's always been cold. So I got there and I was like, man, the temperatures was like it was in the 80s, and the other day it was like in the 70s, and the wind was blowing. I was like, man, I'm not used to this. And you can see that you see mountains over there, and the mountains have snow. I'm like, this is completely different than what I was accustomed to.
Yeah, it was a change up. It
was a change, and I'll tell you the other thing, that altitude and that thin air.
Gets to you, huh?
It does get to you. I can understand the advantage. It's funny when I used to prep my athletes when they used to go to the play games in Denver, when they used to go play games in Utah. We actually would use a different method of training to try to get them acclimated. To the different altitudes.
So what is like? Can you say who it is?
Sure, it's Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. So obviously big news. He says he's in Denver.
Yes,
big change up.
Big change.
Is that like? Are you feeling that from your point of view? Like where you're helping someone go through this thing? Like how is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen. I obviously I had nothing to do with his decision. That was between the organizations and whatever he needed to do. Now my aspect comes in is to come in and adjust his physical and mental preparation program over there to how this team is going to utilize him versus how his old team utilized him, getting used to the altitude, getting used to the different air. People don't think is the simple. People just like, oh, it's just a different location. Well, no, you know what happens over there? The flight of the ball is different. The wind directions are different. So all those things have to be in our training protocols. We adjust all those things. We take all those things into consideration. Now, okay, you know what? Actually, now with the thin air, the ball is going to fly a little. The ball is going to fly a little differently. So the training path, all the little things that people don't pay attention to, we pay attention to. How's the training method? All right, you have to be able to sustain yourself because the style that they're going to play is going to be completely different. All right, the methodology and the recovery thing and the nutrition thing, all that stuff has to be looked at.
Now, when you do these trips, so you were there for 4 days?
Yes.
So are you like with him every hour of the day?
The amount of time I spend with this human being while I'm out there, I was out there for 4 days, and I know I'm supposed to be the health guy, but all the stuff that needs to be done and all the different individuals I have to meet, his teammates, different people in the organization that want to talk to me, and I want to talk to them so I can get their different ideas and what their perception is and what they want to see out of Russell. I probably averaged less than 4 hours of sleep on those days. Yeah.
So you just, we'll talk about it later in the episode, but that's a big thing for you, right?
It's a big thing for me. It's a big thing for me. But I had a commitment to you. Yeah. I came in. I said, "Got to do."
Over here.
I told Russell Wilson, Eddie, no difference. Take that. Yeah. All right. We handle them. That clients are clients.
Yeah. Right. Do you dread that moment though, where you got to go in, you got to be the new staff, you got to tell the staff like, hey, like I'm.
No, I don't, because you know what?
That seems like it would be so annoying. Like I got to go talk to this guy, improve my. I don't know.
No, you know what? It'd be more annoying if they didn't.
Yeah. It'd be negligence. Like you're not.
It's just like spot. Listen, and I'm fortunate enough that I've been in the business for a very, very long time. Most teams are very hesitant to let outside individuals into their facilities, handle their not just handle a player, handle the player on that organization.
Yeah, that Brady trainer story would never die.
Right.
It was just so popular. People would always reference it, and there's friction because of this. It would never die.
Right. And here's the thing: one of my reasons of going out there and wanting to talk to people, reaching out to individuals to let them know, listen, I'm not a replacement for. I'm an addition to. All right. My job is to make your job simpler. Is to make your job easier. So I sit down with the training staffs. I sit down with the nutritionists. I sit down with the coaches. I sit down with their, sports psychologists. I sit down with everybody. I sit down with the people that prepare the food, and say, yeah, listen, let me make things. This is what he likes. This is what. Here it is, and also what are your end goals? So I come from the coach. What do you want to see out? What do you want to see out of him? Call it to the strength, the performance team. When you do your evaluations, what did you see? What are what do we need to work on? What do we need to address? Because he's not going to be with the staff all the time. You know, especially with football, you're very limited of when you can work with the coaches. And listen, I'm not a football expert. I'm not a quarterback coach. I don't do any of those things. I'm not reading the playbooks. I'm not reading the playbooks with him. I'm helping him with the different cues in the playbooks, but I can't tell him what's going on. That's his level of expertise, and the coach's levels of expertise is way higher, which is so important, because what happens is all of a sudden a trainer or an individual come in and they all of a sudden become an expert in football, or they work with a baseball player, they become an expert in pitching, they become an expert in those things. I said that's not what I do.
You're just all mind and body kind of
It's
thing?
mind and body.
Yeah.
Like, listen, if you need him to strengthen his arm because the football has got to go a farther distance, then you know what? That's what we'll do. But here the pitfall. With other quarterbacks that I've worked with. I remember working with one back in the day, and they were like, "Listen, we need more velocity, and we need his throws to come in a lot faster." I said, "Okay, I can do that," but I said, "Now here's the disadvantage of doing that. All right, some of the control is going to be sacrificed. I can't teach that. You have to teach that." So I would tell the head coach, I would tell the quarterback coach. So the ball's going to come in a lot faster. Okay, it's going to come in a lot harder. All right. Well, if you fire a gun, the more powerful the gun is, the more kickback it has, the harder it is to control. It's the same thing. So now, this is why we have these talks with these coaches and so forth. So this is what you want. Now, I will deliver this, but now you're going to make sure that you handle this end of it.
Mm-hmm. And how many times have you found that so to speak, it was like a deadbeat franchise, and you get there and there's no one to talk to? How alarming is that for you?
Well, the players I deal with, they usually don't end up in deadbeat franchises. So, so if they're going to make a trade for an individual that I work with, it's usually they're bringing that person in to win. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not just bringing it in just to be like, all right, salary cap move or anything like that. So they're all engaged.
Well, why would you turn down someone who isn't like at a certain level?
Oh yeah, I turn down more individuals than I take on.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, I've been fortunate and blessed, especially in this stage of my career. I get to pick and choose who I want to work with. There has to be a certain winning mentality within that individual, and not only by what they say, but how they live it, what they do, how they show up to practice, how they engage with their teammates, how they handle adversity, their situations at home. I go in and evaluate all those things, because you talk to an athlete or you talk to anybody and they'll be like, I'll do anything. Well, their definition of anything and my definition of anything is completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But all right then, let's hop into Dr. Fung. Sound
Let's
good?
do it.
All right, here we go. Here's our interview with Dr. Fung. Okay, so we're now joined by Dr. Jason Fung. Dr. Fung, I like to just call you the king of intermittent fasting. So thanks for joining the show. I know. Do you get that a lot? Is that always the first thing people say to you now that the YouTube's gone kind of crazy?
Well, people do mention that. And I think obviously I didn't make it up. Fasting's been around for a long, long time, but it fell into sort of severe disrepute. People thought it was honestly like the worst thing you could do for your body sort of thing. And, I'm a physician, I'm a kidney specialist, and I got really interested in the topic of weight loss a few years ago when we started seeing a lot more issues. There was more people who were overweight, therefore developing type 2 diabetes, therefore developing the kidney problems that I was seeing. And the key, of course, is to prevent the problems. If you lose the weight, then you don't get the type 2 diabetes, then you don't get the kidney problems. And as I was sort of researching, a few things struck me. One is that the standard advice that most doctors are taught, like myself, is incredibly ineffective. That is, we tell people, and I've done it, many times, oh, just watch what you eat, do a little more exercise, basically count your calories, eat less, move more. However, that advice has been around for 25 years at least, and the success rate is probably like 1%, and falling. That is, more people are getting overweight. So we're giving this advice, and 99% of people fail. So why would you give advice that nobody can use? It doesn't make any sense. So therefore, it was clear that we were missing something. And in addition to the foods that we're eating, the other thing that sort of makes a big difference is how often we're eating it. So if you're eating all the time, well, that was sort of what was recommended. We told people eat 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, but that wasn't the standard. Like if you look at the 60s and the 70s, it was 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, no snacks in between. And the other thing that what sort of fell out the window was intermittent fasting. So it's not a new concept, but people thought because you should eat 6 or 10 times a day, they thought if you eat 0, 1, 2 times a day, that you're going to do your body great harm. The thing is that as I started to look into the science of fasting, there's really no reason why people can't do it. In fact, there's these incredible benefits, and it was very easy for a lot of people to implement it. So that's where I started talking about it. So I started talking about the advantages and looking not just at the foods that we are eating, but also how often we're eating them, because that makes a big difference. It's just like if you work out and you work out once a month versus every day, it's a big difference, right? So if you're eating once a day versus 10 times a day, it's going to make a big difference to how much food you're going to take. And that's the whole idea between intermittent fasting, is to sort of bring back this sort of additional tool that people could use to lose weight. If you lose weight by fasting, hey, why not? Like, what's wrong with that? And there was a lot of these sort of misconceptions that I was trying to sort of clear up so that people wouldn't be scared to use that. So when I started in 2013 or so about 8-9 years ago, people honestly thought I was insane. They thought intermittent fasting was like the dumbest thing ever. But it's really a very simple concept. So the human body has the ability to store calories. That's what body fat is. It's a store of calories. That's it. No more or no less. If you eat, you're going to store calories. If you don't eat, like, that's called fasting. Anytime you don't eat, that's fasting. If you don't eat, you're going to use calories. That's it. So if you spend more time fasting, you're going to be able to use up some of those calories that are stored in your body fat, and you're going to lose body fat. So that's all. It's a very simple concept. How are you going to lose weight if you're eating? You can't. Your body is storing those calories. You've told the body through that food, hey, store some of these calories. Just like if you go to the supermarket and you get you go to Costco and you get a lot of food and you put it in your fridge, right? Well, now your fridge is full, and you still go to Costco and get a giant piece of salmon. You got to put it in the fridge. Well, how are you going to empty out your fridge if you're putting stuff in? You can't do that. It's the same thing with your body. If you're constantly telling your body by eating to store those calories, how are you going to burn those calories, right? You can't do that. So that's all it was. It doesn't mean it's fun or it's easy or anything like that, but it's an additional tool to make people healthier. And it turns out it's not as difficult as a lot of people feared.
And I mean, it's taken off like crazy. And I'm interested, Tim, like, obviously you train the highest athletes. Has this taken off with them too?
Well, some of them it has, especially during the off seasons. More from what doctor said. From a hormonal state, from cell regeneration. It's more than, for them, it's more than just losing weight. It's more for cognitive awareness for different aspects. Obviously, we do have some athletes that do need to lose weight, so this is something that they've incorporated. But like I said, it's relatively. What is amazing is we've all been to doctors. And the first thing the doctor tells you when you talk about losing weight or eating better is exactly what they say. Watch what you eat. I'm like, all right, doc, you went to 8 years of medical school to give me that advice that I know already. The way Dr. Fung is explaining it, it's so simple, but it's clear. But the key of what he said, it's not easy. The one thing I know about fasting, and obviously I'm not an expert as Doc is, but there's a lot of downtime between your meals, and idle time for people that are trying to lose weight. It's very difficult, and filling that idle time with different things. And like he said, it can be boring, but some of the most effective things are boring, and people don't want things to be effective and boring at the same time, because that creates idle time for them. And then when they have idle time, that's when most of the mishaps happen. Doc, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I mean, that's exactly what happened during COVID, right? Everybody was home, and then you're instead of going out to the office, you're sitting at home and you're remotely, and then you're bored. Go down, get yourself a snack, right? So some people just gained a tremendous amount of weight throughout this sort of the lockdown period. We saw that 100 times. So I think it's totally true. And the thing is that what fasting does, I mean, fasting is really nothing more than a period that you're not supposed to eat. Okay, so there's nothing sort of mystical about it. People always try and think that there's something weird and wacky. Well, so if you look back at how we used to eat, it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Suppose you eat at breakfast at 8 a.m., you eat dinner at 6 p.m. So this is the way everybody ate in the 70s.
Yeah.
So from 6 p.m., you're finished eating. There's no after school snack. If you tried that, your mom would say, hey, you're going to ruin your dinner. If you wanted a sort of after dinner snack, your mom would say, no, you should have ate more at dinner. There's nothing to eat until breakfast. So from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m., that's a 14-hour span of fasting that practically everybody did every single day without even thinking about it. And, if you ask your grandmother, she'd be like, yeah, that's just the period of time you want to digest. I mean, that's all it was. So it's not something weird and wacky. It's just something natural. It's a natural cycle. And that's where the word breakfast is, right? It's the meal that breaks your fast. All of a sudden you get to the 2020s or 2010s, and everybody's like, yeah, you should eat the minute you get up and don't stop eating till you go to bed. It's like, well, when are you going to use some of the energy that you're putting into your body? Right? It's like a car. Like, you can't just keep filling up. Eventually, that gas is just going to spill over, right? You have to use it. Same thing with the food. You can't just keep putting it in. So why would you eat like that, right? It doesn't make any sense. And then it turns out that there's a whole lot of other things that go on. You're mentioning the cognitive benefits and so on. And it's really important, because it's like, if you're eating all the time, people think that gives them energy and that gives them focus. It doesn't. You think about Thanksgiving and you had a huge Thanksgiving meal. Like, do you feel really mentally sharp, or do you feel just like lying on the couch and watching some football? So and you see it in the animal world too, right? If you think that somebody who hasn't eaten for a while is going to be very lethargic and stuff, like, that's not the case. You look at a lion who just ate, and they're a little dopey, a little, not very sharp. You look at the hungry wolf. No, they're completely zoned in and ready to kill you. And there's a reason for that. When you fast, your body actually starts to activate itself, right? You switch your fuel source from food to stored food, which is basically body fat. Now you're flooding your system with energy, and your body's actually increasing the amount of energy. So if, for example, you look at, they've done studies where they take people and they don't give them anything to eat for 4 days, and they measure their metabolic rate, how many calories they're burning in a day. So on day 0, they measure how much energy they're burning. And then on day 4, after 4 days of no eating, your body is burning 10% more energy than before. So your body's not shutting down. It's actually ramping itself up. And you get the cellular regeneration and the autophagy and all this sort of stuff. During the actual season, of course, it's difficult, because a lot of elite athletes need like a huge amount of calories and stuff. So it's very difficult to do that. But in the off season, as you're saying, yeah, a lot of people do that. And it's just a tool, right? You have to understand what you're doing. And, when you can use it, then you're going to derive the benefits.
Well, one thing, obviously he said it's really interesting during the COVID time is the refrigerator stayed full. And this is one thing I've always said. If it's in my house, I'm more likely to eat it. All right. If it's not in my house, I'm not going to go out and go get it. I'm just not. So most of the stuff I'm not supposed to eat, or like he said, the snack foods in between my meals and so forth. I don't bring that in. I don't bring that into my house. If I open up the refrigerator and it's empty, I'm not going to jump in my car and go shop. The stuff I keep in my refrigerator is necessary for that week. When it ends, I replenish it. It's just when I exercise, I burn the calories and then I replenish it. If I don't burn those calories, I don't feel the need to replenish those calories. I don't want to eat it. I don't want to eat again. But the way society is, with everything, with the TV and the Instagrams and your phones, you're constantly bombarded. The stimulus is you're constantly bombarded with food all the time. You're seeing everything that's going on. So what happens is your brain starts to get in that habit, like that you feel like you're hungry or you need to eat because it's constantly getting this stimulus over and over again. And he said back in the day, you'd have breakfast. When I grew up, I had breakfast at home, packed a lunch. I had lunch, and I got home and I had dinner. And that was it. And we had the thing about, listen, my parents always said, you don't want to sleep on a full stomach. You won't sleep as well. You'll feel groggy when you get up. So all the things that we've known back in the 70s and so forth, all those things that actually work now, all the information that we get out there is saying it doesn't work. But when you bring up the simple principles that he's talking about at Thanksgiving, how do you feel? Forget about Thanksgiving. How do you feel when you've eaten too much, whether it's at dinner or something? You lay back, you undo your belt, and you're like, oh, and you don't feel good. You don't feel good. So a lot of it is, like he said, a lot of it is common sense.
Yeah, and think about this for a second. Like in the 70s, I grew up in the 70s. So if you were a naughty boy, then they sent you to bed with no dinner. So you actually went from 12 noon to like 8 a.m. Yeah, you had a 20-hour fast. And virtually every naughty kid in America and Canada has done this. And then all of a sudden, and nothing bad happened. Nobody died. Everybody was fine. We all turned out fine, right? One day you don't eat. Well, you hope you learned their lesson. That was about it. All of a sudden you get to the 2000s, everybody says, oh, make sure you do not ever skip a single meal because you might die, right? I'm like, what the hell, right? What are you talking about? Like, what happened to all those kids in the 70s? Like, they were fine. And as a doctor, I tell people to fast all the time. That is, if you have to go for surgery, you have to fast. If you do a colonoscopy, you have to fast. If you do fasting blood work, you have to fast. So here I am telling people left and right, day after day after day, you have to fast for this. You have to fast for this. You just had surgery. You can't eat. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, if you're trying to lose weight, make sure you eat every 10 seconds. Like what, like where's the disconnect? How is that? How, like, it cannot possibly be so bad for you that I tell people to do it constantly. And yet, it should never be done, right? There's a huge, disconnect from reality to what these people were saying that you have to eat all the time. You don't. Think about it for a second. Like if a pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So if you have, 10 pounds, you've got 35,000. Most of us are way more than 10 pounds of body fat. So, you've got not just 35,000, you've probably got 300,000, 200,000 calories sitting in body fat. That's just storage. So why do you need to eat? Why can't you simply let your body take the calories from storage? It's no different than you taking food out of your freezer and eating it. You don't have to go to the store every single day, 6, 7, 8 times a day. Why? Because you have a freezer and a fridge that you've stored it. It's the same as our body. You can take the calories out of storage. You just have to let it. There's nothing weird. There's nothing unnatural. It's completely natural. It's literally the reason that you have body fat. It's not there for looks. It's there for you as a stored form of energy. So use it. If you have too much, use it. Just like when you have no room in your fridge, stop going to the store. You eat some of the food that's in your freezer. Well, if you have too much body fat, stop putting energy in. Stop putting calories into storage and start taking them out. And that's all it is. And the fasting is important because it gives you this sort of structure where you can build around. Because they talk about the difference between, counting calories. Maybe it's all due to calories. Like maybe it is. Who cares, right? If it works for you, it works for you. But the point is this: when you try to count calories, it's very difficult because you eat a piece of fish. You have zero idea how many calories that is, right? I mean, there's only calories on boxed foods that need a label. Natural foods have no labels. So you go and get some broccoli, you have zero idea how many calories that is. So if you have zero idea how many calories that is, how are you going to count it? It's an impossible task to do this day after day after day. And we've done it. People have done it. It's like impossible to do this day after day. Your whole life would revolve around taking pictures of your food and trying to calculate how many calories it is, as opposed to simply saying, well, I eat breakfast, I eat lunch, I eat dinner. Outside of that, I don't eat. That's it. It's a much simpler process to structure that as your eating pattern. And if say, I went on vacation, I ate too much, I gained a few pounds. So maybe today I'm only going to eat one meal. Why? Because I want to take some of the energy out. And I'm going to do that for a few days because I put on a few pounds. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's a lot easier to do than to say, okay, well, I gained a few pounds, so then I'm going to have to count exactly how many calories it is. And instead of 500, I'm going to go down 700. You're almost always going to be wrong. For sure, you're going to be wrong. So the point is that it gives you a structure, it gives you sort of this, this sort of guide as to how to do it. That's very simple, easy to understand. Anybody can do it. And it's free. Like I'm not telling you to buy anything. I'm just saying, don't eat all the time. That's all the advice I have. If you want to lose weight, do not eat all the time. It's a terrible habit if you're trying to lose weight.
Yeah, spelling that out, that was like how it really clicked with me, was how the deep freezer analogy. Like, just know your excess fat, like that's your deep freezer. Like if you ever got into a situation where you weren't able to get food, like that's what it's going to feed on. So I don't know, something clicked. So I don't know if does that make sense to you? Like, is that kind of like how you see it as well?
Yeah. I mean, listen, when you're trying to lose weight, all right, what did he say? It's about structure. And the reason people have a hard time with this structure is because first, it's so simple and they're like, this'll never work. But dealing with the discomfort, everybody, when you're trying to lose weight and you don't eat, you get these triggers in your body that says you're hungry, but you're not. All right, your stomach starts to rumble, or you're just like, man, I haven't eaten for a little while, or you just there's something that kind of takes over. If you can fill in, Doc, if you can tell us how to deal for people that are intermittent, that are interested in this, and that everybody's with the obesity rate and just people being not even obese, just overweight in general. How do you deal with those things?
Yeah, and it's important to understand. So the hunger is separate. So if you think about it sort of logically, what's happening is that you want to switch that hunger. It means that your body is sort of out of gas, sort of. So you want it to move from food to stored food, which is body fat. So that's going to happen, and you got to expect that it's going to happen. The reason people say you should never be hungry, right, is because they think that eventually you're just going to get so hungry that you're going to have to stuff a couple Krispy Kreme donuts into your mouth, right? So the idea is that your hunger builds and builds and builds. That's not actually what happens. So you will get hungry when you're fasting. You have to accept that. That is going to happen. What happens when you don't eat when you're hungry? It doesn't build. It actually passes like a wave. So we know this because we've done lots of studies on this. So if you are normally eating lunch at 12 and you don't eat at 12, you will be hungry. At 1, you're still going to be hungry. By 4, that hunger will have passed, and your level of hunger will be actually pretty much exactly the same as if you ate. So what happened? Well, your body fed itself on its body fat. No different than taking the food out of your freezer and cooking it as opposed to going out and buying some, right? But you fed yourself on your body fat. So yes, it will be a little bit uncomfortable. So what do? Same thing you do when you have something that you don't like to do, like take your mind off of it, drink some tea, drink some coffee, schedule something, like go for a walk, maybe do some exercise in the thing, book a meeting, book a podcast, whatever it is that is going to take your mind off of that hunger. You just need to let it pass. And you have to know that it's not bad for you. You can do other things like sort of reframing and training your mind and stuff. For example, one of the things we do at thefastingmethod.com, so this is where we provide coaching for fasting, because it's a very simple concept, but it's not easy and it's not fun. So what we say is that what you want to reframe that, and you say, well, yes, I'm going to be hungry. You want to then say, okay, I'm going to think about hunger differently. Hunger is my signal that I'm going to start and burn body fat, right? And so now you have two things. One, hunger is uncomfortable. But on the other hand, every time I get hungry, I'm going to repeat to myself, this is just my body switching over to body fat. So I repeat that to myself, and yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I can deal with it because I know what the body is doing.
What about the old? Wasn't there an old adage that's going to eat away at your muscle? Is there any? People have said that all the time, right? There's like, you never want to be hungry; it's going to start eating away at your muscle.
You'd have to go ahead, Doc. I'll let you handle this one.
That's a funny one because it's like, okay, so let's think about this for a second. So, our body stores calories, which is food energy, in two ways. It stores it as sugar, it stores it as fat. It doesn't store it as muscle. So, do you think that our body is so incredibly stupid that we would store calories as body fat, but the minute you don't have calories, you start to burn muscle, which is functional tissue? Like, do you think that we would have even survived as a human species if that was the case? Like, you think about all the people like in the cavemen and cavewomen, right? You have these repeated cycles of feast and famine. You store energy as fat, you use it as fat. If you store it as fat and burn muscle, eventually we'd all be little blobs of fat running around the prairies, right? But that didn't happen. It's just inconceivable that is what the human body does. In fact, there's lots of studies now that have done it. Even this most recent one we were talking about, where in the New England Journal, where it basically showed that no, there wasn't a lot of muscle loss. In fact, if anything, and this gets back to some of the athletes, there's certain advantages of training while fasted because your body actually starts to activate itself. You get increased levels of this fight or flight response, which is the sympathetic tone. You get growth hormone increases, so you can actually train harder and recover faster. So this whole idea of burning muscle is actually quite, it's quite a misconception. And one of the things that was trotted out, it's sort of like if you spend all your time, building up firewood for the winter, and then the minute it gets cold, you chop up your sofa and throw it into your fire. Like, why would you do that? Like, that'd be crazy. Do we think that the human body is just that dumb? I don't think so. We store it as fat and sugar. We use it as fat and sugar.
Well, the thing about the burning the muscle tissue, if you ever got to that point, first of all, if you got to that point, you wouldn't have to drop. You wouldn't. Those individuals are not dropping. They're not looking to drop weight. It's not a person. Your depletion of stored fat have to be almost completely gone.
Yeah.
All right, in order to take that, and that would require, that's a different medical condition. That's an eating, that would have to lead with an eating disorder or so forth. But you're talking about general weight loss that are trying to lose 10, 15, 50, 100 pounds or whatever it is. That is adage about, if I don't eat for 12 hours, 14 hours, what it is, my the fuel source is going to come from muscles. It's not happening. That's a good way for you to trick yourself into thinking that so you can go eat.
Exactly. And then what you're saying about structure is absolutely correct, because the whole idea is that we've lost that structure. So you go back to the 70s, because there's a period of time where people are eating white bread. I grew up in that time, right? People hated whole wheat bread. There was nothing else.
You get the white bread, and you get the bologna or the ham and the cheese in between it with a Ziploc bag. I don't know about your parents, but for my parents, I had to bring the Ziploc back. I had to bring the bag back.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Every day, and it wasn't bad because, of course, everybody else did it too, right? But the point is that there's lots of food around, but they had a structure to their eating day that was very, very clear. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, nothing else. Now, of course, there's no structure to your eating day. You want to eat a snack? Go ahead, eat a snack. You want something at midnight? Go ahead, eat at midnight. You want to skip breakfast? No, you can't skip breakfast. You have to eat, right? So there's no structure to the eating day. So, of course, people just eat all the time without any sort of rules to sort of guide them, like simple rules that will keep them healthy. Right? It doesn't make any sense. It's like anything else, right? If you have a structure, like you have a sports team, well, you have practices every week. That's just what you do, or every day, or twice a day, or whatever level you're at, right? You don't say, well, practice when you feel like it. Pretty soon, you get a pretty crappy team. Same thing, right? You have no rules to structure your eating day. Well, pretty soon, you're going to go to the lowest common denominator, right? You're going to eat chips, and you're going to eat this, and you're going to eat that, and you're going to eat all the time because you're bored, or it's sitting there, right? It's like you think about all these meetings people have and stuff, and now instead of in the 70s, you have a meeting in an office. There's no food. We're trying to do work here, right? Now, of course, you got somebody who's ordered coffee and muffins, and you'll take a break, and they'll have like granola bars and stuff. It's like, why? This is an office. Or you have bowls of candy in the office. Why? This is an office. Like, this is a place of work. We've lost all those rules, right? Before, it was like, you eat, there's a place for that. The cafeteria, there's a time for that. Noon or dinner time or whatever. Now it's like, wherever you want, whenever you want. And when you lose all those rules, that's when you're going to see problems, which is exactly what we do. And that's what fasting does. And it doesn't have to be like 40 days and 40 nights. It could be the 14 hours that you're talking about, but it gives you that structure that you can then go ahead and succeed.
People like to be structured from Monday morning until Thursday evening.
Yeah.
That's when they like. That's when they like to be. That's when they like to be structured during that time. Then they're like, I have so many individuals that with the different types of programs. They're like, well, if I'm good for 4 days, the other 3 won't matter because I'm better for 4. Or if I'm good Monday through Friday, I could do whatever I want on the weekend. That's not structure. That's not structure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And of course the fasting, of course, also it's the structure and the habit. The habit is what makes it easy, right? Because if you're in the habit of only eating at certain times and in certain places, well, it's not so hard to not eat at your desk because that's not your habit, right? Or not eat outside of those specific periods of time. So what we're trying to do is, build a structure, build the habits that are going to lead you to success. No different than, Monday morning is, conditioning. Tuesday is weights, and Wednesday is this, right? It's the same. It's a habit. So okay, well, we're coming in, or season's coming up. Now it's a time to get in shape. It's just a habit. So there's the daily habits. There's the weekly habits. So, Monday to Friday is this, Saturday is this, Sunday is this. And then there's the yearly habits, right? So, once a year, I do more fasting because it's, Lent or something like that, or it's Ramadan, or it's Yom Kippur. And certain times I'm just going to relax that because it's Christmas and New Year's and stuff, right? So it's like there's these sort of ups and downs that you have to have, and that's what that structure provides you. And that's really one of the big things we've lost in the last sort of 40 years. And so people talk about obesity, how we have this epidemic, and it's like they're wondering why. It's because you don't have any rules. It's a train whenever you want and hope that you become an Olympic athlete. No Olympic athlete ever gets there with a train whenever you want, wherever you want, whatever you want sort of structure. But we have the same thing. Eat whatever you want, eat whenever you want, eat wherever you want, right? You can't do that.
So if someone's looking to get into it, what would you recommend? Like what windows do you usually recommend out of the gate?
Well, the best thing is to start out with, so there's two things that are important, right? The foods that you eat. And I'm not talking about calories, because calories that's not something that you can see or measure, right? So you want to eat sort of, cut down the sugar, or eat unprocessed foods, natural foods, right? Because you can tell right there that, a salad or a steak or eggs, those are natural foods because that's what they look like in nature. And that this, highly processed food coming out of a box is not, right? So it's easy to tell. So you want to, make those food choices. And then you want to start with just cutting out the snacks, right? So breakfast, lunch, dinner. We're just going back to the 70s. Literally everybody in North America was doing this without any problems. Then you can try to shorten your window. And all you're trying to do, again, is to allow more time to be in that sort of fasted state. Remember, your body only exists in sort of two states: the fed state, where you're storing calories, and the fasted state, where you're burning calories. So you want to lose weight, spend more time in the fasted state. So that's an easy way to start. And then you can start to experiment with other things, such as going longer or shorter. You can do, even multiple days and stuff for weight loss. Again, it's completely flexible, and it's completely up to you. And then it depends on what your results are. And again, the other thing that's important is have, somebody to keep you accountable, maybe so a coach can do that, a friend can do that. Again, we spend a lot of time talking about that at thefastingmethod.com, because it's like, if you try and do it yourself, it's easy to slip. If there's somebody there, then you're accountable to them, right? So even the best players in the world, like Michael Jordan, he still had a coach. He was way better than his coach, but the coach was there to make sure that he came out to practice, that he practiced properly, that he did all those things that are going to make him the best player in the world, right? So it's that accountability. If you're trying to lose weight, then yeah, maybe some friends to do it with, a group to do it with, that sort of thing is very important as well. So make sure you have the support. That is, everything's easier when you're doing it with other people.
One of the things that he brought up is what people want to do is when they start anything, whether it's an exercise program, fasting program, nutrition program, whatever it may be, everybody wants to go to the extreme. Like that's why, like in New Year's, I say this, people say, all right, this is my New Year's resolution. The last time they were in the gym was a year ago. The last time they tried to eat properly or try a, diet, so-called diet, whatever it be, was a year ago. All right. The last time they stopped drinking was a year ago. Then January 2nd or 3rd rolls around and they said, okay, I'm not going to eat any processed foods. I'm not going to eat any sugar. All right. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to work out every single day for 2 hours. And what happens? You end up doing that for about a week and it just goes away. So what the doctor said about the fasting thing, he goes, start with the smaller windows, master those, and then you can expand. He said, listen, if you wanted, then you can expand to more hours. You can expand to days. You can expand to multiple days. But people just want to go, they just want that result like immediately. So when they talk about fasting, they're like, okay, I'm not going to eat anything all day today. And then that lasts for a day. You have to build, just like from an exercise program, you build yourself up to that. You don't build Michael Jordan just didn't become Michael Jordan in one day. It was years and years and years of training, years and years of structure, years and years of discipline, and years of trying to find the right things that work. And if they didn't work, don't give up on them. Say, hey, let's figure out a different way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing about fasting that's very interesting to me is that it's sort of like, there's a huge number of advantages to fasting. For example, you can use any diet. Like if you're vegan, you can still fast. If you're carnivore, you can still fast. If you're keto, if you're low fat, whatever you want to do, right? It tells you nothing about what you eat during the time you eat. It just tells you, make sure you leave some time to digest the food that you're eating. And the other thing, of course, is that it's free. Like it doesn't cost you anything. It's not like a diet program or shakes or whatever, or that you have to go out and buy. Like literally, you can start tomorrow for no money, and it doesn't take time. It gives you back time, right? Because if you don't, like, I don't eat breakfast a lot of times. That wasn't originally for weight loss. That was because I was just wanted to sleep. I wanted to sleep until the last minute that I had to get up. And therefore, I didn't want to get up, make my food, eat it, clean up, and then walk out the door. I got another half an hour of sleep every single night. So I'm like, I'll take that. I'll take that over breakfast. I don't really need breakfast. And then it gets into a habit, right? So it's like, it's free. It gives you back time. It makes your life simpler because you don't have to worry about what you're eating, when you're eating. And the key is that it's not something that you're trying to do. It's something that you're trying to not do, right? So you can take that time and go do something else. So you want to do it, and you want to do something you enjoy. So, for example, people who struggle with, I get really hungry at noontime. Maybe you can go do a pickup game of basketball. Maybe you can go play the 9 holes of golf during that time, right? Because instead of taking an hour, you can take an hour and go play pickup basketball, something you enjoy and is going to take your mind off of it. By the time you're all done, you're showered, back to work. Hey, it's work time now. That hunger will have totally slipped by you. You wouldn't have even noticed it. But now you got to enjoy yourself. You got to do a little exercise, and then you're going to lose weight because all that exercise, the energy's got to come from somewhere. You're taking it out of your stores. Right? So that's even like a double benefit. Is it fun? No, it's not fun. I'd rather eat pizza myself, but it's a way to stay healthy.
And it was interesting because any nutrition plan that I've ever put anybody on, and they look at it, the first thing they always ask, what can I snack on? What can I snack on?
It's all ingrained into us,
yes.
Right? So think about this for a second. And this is what's bizarre because, when my kids were young and, they'd go on a field trip or something, I get this note and they'd be like, oh, make sure you pack 2 snacks for your kid. I'm like, why? Is he not eating lunch? Or am I not feeding him dinner when I get home? Right? It's like, you got like an hour ride from your field trip or whatever, and you want me to pack 2 snacks for him. Why doesn't he do what we did in the 70s, which is just fool around on the bus and that's it? Like, you don't have to eat. Like, all of a sudden, like, you get to school and it's like, okay, you got your breakfast, right? Everybody has that breakfast. You get your mid-morning snack. Then you eat your lunch. Then you have your after-school snack. Then you have your dinner. And then in between the halves of the soccer game, parents think you need to feed your kids. Like, what? Like, they're happy playing soccer. You don't have to chase them down and give them some juice and cookies, right? But all of a sudden, it becomes ingrained into our society that you must snack. It's healthy for you to snack. Yeah, it's like it's not.
Replenish your energy during a soccer game. Between timeouts and halftime and after the game. So No,
I always thought that was the worst. Like the you know the little kids playing soccer, then you have your halftime. Then you take turns. The parents take turns bringing snacks. Right, you got juice and cookies, and it's like, I played when I was a kid too. You're so engrossed in the game. Like his game is a great game. You're so engrossed in the game, you actually just don't want to stop. You don't want to stop. And if you want to stop, you want to get back out there. You want to dribble the ball. You want to get on the field. Like you see it at the basketball games, right? And in between when there's a half, you see kids coming out and shooting baskets, right? You don't need to be sitting down, drinking juice and eating cookies. Like what kind of habits are we instilling? But it gets ingrained into us that you have to snack, have to snack, have to snack. You don't let your body take it out of your stores.
Yeah, very rarely does a kid come out during a timeout or a halftime or anything saying, hey, mom or dad, give me something to snack on. There's like you said, they're so focused on the game. They just it's the parents that are constantly bringing this stuff out. It would be many times where when I work with my athletes, they were so focused, so intense, so in the zone of the game that they would forget to even drink water. They'd even forget to hydrate. You're forgetting to hydrate. Let alone, I'm not going to say, okay, now you have to go in there and you have to go get something to eat. But all the advertisements and the commercials and everything that you see now, it's all tied into healthier lifestyle and better performance. More.
Yeah, and the hunger is totally like if you think about it, like fourth quarter, you're totally into the game and your muscles are going. It's like how many times have you ever thought at that point, boy, I'm really hungry? Like zero.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't exist because your blood is all shunted away from your stomach. It's shunted away from your intestines. You don't want to be digesting food because you want that blood going into your muscles and the focus and all that sort of stuff. So when you're focused on those games, like there is no hunger, but yet we keep insisting, oh, you got to eat something. It's like that's probably the worst thing you can do at that point. It's that's why you don't do it, right? It's sort of killer if you try and do that in the middle of the game. But we do it for kids, right? It's like crazy. I mean, it's different for sort of an ultra endurance athletes and stuff, right? But for most regular games that people are just playing, it's fine.
And so besides snacking, what is in bounds outside of the fast? Because there's always conflicting things like, oh, you could have coffee, you can't. What is in bounds outside of the fast?
Yeah, so really, again, there's no rules. So classic fasting is water only. But there's other things that you can take, and they're not sort of classic true fast, so to speak, like coffee. Or some people use bone broth, and bone broth has calories, it has so on. But the point is that it's not a lot. So when you're, everybody thinks, oh, you broke your fast, therefore you have to start from zero. It's like that's not the case. Like if you're using energy, and then you take like a peanut, well, that energy is going to be gone in like 3 minutes, sort of thing. So then you're going to go back to using energy. So in fact, what's happening is that, yes, even if you break your fast, but it's a little bit, then it's going to be a very short window. And then you're just going to go back into using this, the body fat. So you don't have to worry about it so much. And it all depends on what you want to do. So I usually, things like green tea is great and herbal teas are great because they have a little flavor. There's no calories and so on. Black coffee is fine. If you add a little cream, again, not a big deal because if it gives you a little bit of satiety, and allows you to fast longer, you're probably coming out ahead. And then you have things like, they have little, things that have a little bit more, which is like the bone broth and that kind of thing. But you still want to stay away from artificial, flavors and like the crystal lights and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's just not like artificial sweeteners, for example. Like there's nothing like the artificial sweeteners don't have any calories. But again, you don't want to be taking something that's like sweet, because that's just priming your body for getting hungry. Like, why are you gonna like like if you have an appetizer, it's a small amount of food. It doesn't make you less hungry. It makes you more hungry, right? So even if you take an artificial sweetener, it's sweet. So your body thinks that you're going to eat. and then you're going to start salivating and stuff. So why make yourself, why sabotage yourself like that, right? It's some people are fine with it, but there's so many people that's their big problem, is that they're drinking sort of 10 cans of diet soda a day and then wondering why they're hungry all the time. It's because you're basically telling your body, hey, you're going to be eating soon, right? It's so sweet, like you're getting some sweetness. It's an appetizer. So then your body's sort of naturally looking for something to eat, so you're hungry. So you're basically making yourself hungry. And that's why you can't stop eating, because of all the, you're stimulating yourself. So a lot of people, they drop it and then all of a sudden the weight goes down, even though the soda itself didn't have any calories. So I tell people to avoid the diet sodas and that sort of stuff while they're fasting. But the other things, the sort of more natural things, green tea, for example, has some natural appetite suppressants. Coffee often does that. It also has the caffeine, so it's a bit of a stimulant. So both of those things are very good. I tell people, like, hey, if you're hungry, go get yourself a big cup of hot tea or hot coffee. Drink it slowly, savor it. By the time you're done, your hunger is going to be gone, because that's the thing. By the time you focused on it, that hunger wave has just passed.
Well, Dr. Fung, thanks for joining us. Tim, anything else?
Doc, if people wanted to get more information about fasting, your programs, books, anything, how would
so you can
do that?
My books, I have the Obesity Code and the Complete Guide to Fasting. And you can go to, I have a number of videos on YouTube, so that's all free. Just look under my name. And there's lots of topics about fasting, about nutrition, and weight loss. And you can also go to the thefastingmethod.com, where there's information, and we also provide coaching and so on.
Awesome. Dr. Jason Fung, thanks so much. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate your time, Doc. Thank you so much.
All right, so that was Dr. Jason Fung. Thanks again to him for coming on. So Tim, where are you at with intermittent fasting? So you seem like you're kind of on board.
Yeah, you know what? Listen, I always say, find what works with you and stick with it and give it a chance. Now, I don't, for the high profile athletes that I deal with from an in-season standpoint, it would be something very difficult to do, but it's no different than, a pro athlete who, is going through, Ramadan or whatever it is during that time. They're only allowed to eat and drink during certain things. It's a discipline that comes with it, but it's a program that works for many, but there are other programs out there that also work for many. You got to find something that sticks with you. This is one of the hot things out there, because it's very effective. It's simple. It creates clarity, and it doesn't, like the doctor said, it doesn't cost a lot. He's not telling you to go out and buy. He's just telling you, listen, like everything else, stay away from the processed foods. Minimize your sugars. That's the one thing most weight loss programs are pretty consistent about. Doing those things. And again, I can make this so simple for people, and I know that they don't want to hear this thing. All right. You want to lose weight? Eat less. It really isn't that complex. And I know people are going to get into all the different things about, I'm going to start losing muscle. I'm not going to feel good. First of all, if you're trying to lose weight, don't worry about the muscles right now. All right. You're going to be using a completely different energy source. Like the doc says, there are levels of discomfort that's going to happen with any kind of caloric restrictive program. But the simplest thing right now is, if you want simplicity, and you don't want to think about the microns and 6 meals, 8 meals a day, and counting calories and food prep and all that other stuff, eat less.
Couple things stuck out to me that he said, and all of it was great information. Like I said, I watch his YouTube videos all the time, so I knew I was a little prepped for, what he was going to say. But the thought that, it's so true in the business world that like everywhere you go, there's donuts on the table, there's something there. And that just people just keep going through is just like, when you really put it into perspective and then how it should be shortened is kind of crazy.
Food's everywhere. I mean, people want to create a comfortable environment, and they think food and comfort food is creating a comfortable environment. And then we know all the studies of what happens is when you eat those comfort foods, they're not the best foods if you're sitting in a meeting and trying to be focused. You don't really want comfort foods. You want to be able to keep them alert. You want to be able to keep them awake. You want to be able to keep them focused. And one of the best things that, he brought out of this thing is, how do you feel when you overeat or you overindulge? It's not like you have all this extra energy now. You want to go in and go do things. You're just like, man, for the guys, you want to unbuckle your pants. You want to lay back. And you're just like, oh, I just ate so much. So it actually creates the other state of what you're looking for.
And then he said something about kids eating at the halftime of the soccer game. We got into that. Did you ever have an athlete like was Gilbert Arenas slamming hot dogs at halftime? Did you ever have anyone that ate at halftime?
No, none whatsoever. I mean, very rarely, if an athlete wasn't feeling well, and they, something was going on, maybe we'd have something for them. But to sit down and have like something for them to eat at halftime, whether it be meal, some kind of supplement bar or something, I never required that of any of my athletes. Hydration, yes. I wanted to make sure that they were always hydrated, because there's tons of studies out there that how hydration affects performance. All my individuals, they were properly fueled the evening before, the morning of, before the game. That it was not necessary for them, like you said, at halftime to be like, man, I'm starving here.
Yeah, I mean that's because, and I don't know if you worked with him or not, but remember there was that old story like Ron Artest used to go drink Hennessy and do stuff at halftime, which is crazy. So I didn't know if there was any guys you had that had some weird traditions or whatever.
I want to call that a tradition, but but hey, listen, sure. There are some. There's a lot of athletes that have their little quirks. Mine, none. No Hennessy at halftime.
What was there any quirks though? Was it like any pregame things like that a certain guy kind of liked and whatnot?
Well, one of the things when I started working with MJ, everybody was like, back then was a big carb loading because for the athletes to kind of like, he played at such a high level with such intensity, and then when I started with him, he would come up to me and he'd say, literally by the end of the third quarter, he goes, I feel physically drained. So I started to look at his nutrition habits, and one of the things that we paid attention to was like, okay, what time he got to the game, when was his last meal, all that other stuff. So what we did was we actually changed the ratios of his foods to be more protein based and less carbohydrate based to kind of slow the digestive process down, because it takes longer for the body to digest and break down protein than it does carbohydrates. So we made those kind of adjustments. Now, what I did do with some of my athletes is they didn't want to eat after the game, but I knew I had to work them out. I had to work them out the next morning. All right. And they had already like says, I don't want a sports drink. I don't want anything like that. So I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I give them? They don't want food. What can I give them to put an energy source in that individual as quickly as possible? And we've seen, if you've watched The Last Dance, you've watched any of the documentaries of the Chicago Bulls, what did you usually see Michael, Scotty, and Ron doing after a game? after they sit in the training room? What do they have in their hands?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I remember.
Beer.
Oh. I just thought. I mean, that just went over my head because I was thinking they were just celebrating. I didn't. You're telling me that they were drinking beer for a nutritional aspect or a physical aspect?
You have to. You remember, these athletes, their body fat percentage is so low. It's so low, so they don't have a reserve system like you and I have. Mm-hmm. They just don't. All right, and a lot of them don't like to eat. They don't like, after they've exerted so much energy after a game, they're like, the last thing they want to do is eat. And there's a certain window of time in order that you have to replenish the body within to be able to perform at the optimum level the next. Now, they weren't going out there and drinking, a case. They'd have a beer in their hand and they sip it, so they get their carbohydrates, they get their little hydration in, they get some other things in them just to kind of like, okay. And it's for a lot of individuals, it's the same thing that doctor said. It created that sensation for them to eat later on that day. So let's trust it. I'm not recommending this for athletes. I'm not recommending this for everybody. I'm not recommending this for kids at all. But there are a lot of things that you have to do with high performance athletes that is not the standard. It's not what you think. It's how to think.
And that was the third thing I wrote down. His lion analogy was pretty strong too, I thought, with how when they're lethargic after they eat, but before they're hunting their prey.
Everyone's lethargic after they eat.
Mm-hmm. So did you have these guys, like, where did you end up scaling back? Like would you recommend, say, even let's bring it to business, because that's what most of the people are going to be watching this. Like if they're going into, like a big presentation or they got to speak in front of the company, like what do you think is...
I don't like, the one thing I do before every talk that I give, and my talks are very intense, and some of them go as long as 2 hours. I don't eat.
No,
I don't. I just make sure that there's water in there, water available to me. But I refuse to eat. And they'll have the whole spread. They'll have the snacks. They'll have they'll have the donuts, they'll have the muffins, they'll get me whatever I want. If I told them, hey, listen, I want a 10-course meal, they'll have it for me. Mm-hmm. I won't eat, whether it's breakfast in the afternoon or something. I will, if I have a talk to give at like 3-4 o'clock, I'll have breakfast and maybe a small snack at lunch. Well, probably won't even. I don't have the same energy level. I don't have the same focus. And when I talk, I'm constantly pacing. I'm like a shark. I'm moving. I just don't stand on the stage or sit down. I have to keep moving. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of like the analogy of what he said about the hungry wolf. I'm attacking my presentation. I'm out there. I'm more in attack mode than I am in the comfort mode, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to elevate the individuals that I'm speaking to.
And that's just interesting, because everyone's like, "Oh, you got to make sure you eat so you have the energy to do this." So I don't know. It's just feels like, we talked a little bit after the interview about how we've kind of been fed different information. So I don't know.
Well, here's the thing about people always talk about the energy. Listen. There's a difference between having the energy to do something and then feeling discomfort that you don't have the energy to do something. You have enough reserves in your body. There are very few individuals, unless you're an ultra endurance athlete. For the average individual or the average athlete out there, or even the average individual out there, you have enough reserves in your system. All right, you need to use those reserves. Because if you don't use those reserves and you put more food in, you have more reserves and more reserves and more reserves. What did he say about the car? All right, you got to use the gas in there before you put more gas in it. Otherwise, it's gonna overflow. Well, and for me, it's just I've never felt The only time I've ever felt low on energy or is if I don't sleep properly. And if I didn't get enough sleep the night before. But from a food standpoint, being structured and regimented, like for me, one of my structures is not to eat close to when I have to give a talk. That's one of my structures. Now, from a workout standpoint, when I finish a workout, all right, I make sure I get something in my system within 30 minutes afterwards. So the different activities and different lifestyles and different things that are going on determine what's going to happen on that particular day.
And you said, like, obviously they'll bring you whatever, like they'll have you lined up muffins or whatever. Now, did you get yourself to, now that's part of your routine. You don't want to eat because you feel better in your talks. But like, say you go to the Hornets game and you're sitting in MJ's suite. Like, how do you bypass all that stuff then? Like, you're just trained, like you're just in a routine then? Like,
I'm focused in more on the game. I'm there to, people think the food, you get people that sit at the games, and most people don't even pay attention to the games. They're paying more attention to the halftime entertainment. They're paying attention to the cheerleaders. They're paying attention to hot dogs and the beers and all that other stuff, and the T-shirt that's coming out of the crowd. The T-shirt that's coming out of the crowd. My focus is different. My focus is it's about the game. That's my enjoyment. My enjoyment isn't the food. If I look at, listen, I'll look at it. And if there's something I want, I will have a sample of it. But that's not my focus over there.
And it's just, yeah. And part of it is your job. You know, most of the time you're going there to watch a client.
Right. But even if it's not just for an entertainment. Now, tell me, listen, do I want to have the cheesecake that they bring by? Do I want to have the ice cream? Do I want to have? Yeah, I do. All right, but I just tell myself, no. You literally have to tell yourself, no. I'm not having it. Or if you're going to have it, have enough to satisfy whatever urge that you have and leave the rest. No one says you have to finish it all. You have to finish the plate. I used to be a huge soda drinker when I was a kid. Huge. So every now and then, probably once every like 3 months, I get this craving for a soda. I literally do. And I'll run to one of the fast food places. I'll get a large because it's the same price whether you get a small, medium, or large. I get a large. I literally take a sip.
That's it.
And literally my craving is satisfied. It's done. And I look at myself, I could literally go in there and walk into the place and just feel like just pushing the thing and put my mouth underneath it, get a little thing. I said, all right, I'm good to go.
No, I got you. No, I really enjoyed that conversation. It's so popular right now, and
it is.
His YouTube is just he really breaks it down well. So
he makes it simple. He makes it simple to understand. And like I said, the first thing is what they said. The most information you get from a doctor when they tell you about the nutrition things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just gotta. Come on. Mm-hmm. But all right then, Tim, we could wrap up here. Is there anything we want to give the audience here to end?
Yeah, you know what? Listen, there's a lot of misinformation about eating. Just about the different drinks that are out there, the different types of alcohol, the different types of food, whether sugar-free, fat-free, all that other stuff. And we've kind of made it simple for the individuals and for our listeners. If you just go to timgrover.com/eating, you get a free download. Free. We're not selling you anything. Again, timgrover.com/eating, and it would give you the basic understandings of all the misinformation that's out there about all the different things that you hear all the time about what you should eat: fat-free, sugar-free, gluten-free, air-free. all the different things that are out there. It kind of summarizes it and just say, hey, listen, this is the way you get tricked into believing these things, and these are the pitfalls to look for so you don't fall into them.
Okay. And then for me, I know last week was 500 steps. What should we do next week?
So how'd you feel while you did those steps?
Felt good. I mean, obviously, you're huffing and puffing a little bit.
Right. So how long did it take? You to give me the breakdown of how you did it.
Oh, I pretty much did 5 flights. Stopped for a little bit, caught my breath, and then did the next 5 flights.
Okay.
So it wasn't hard for me. But I know I don't know. I'm not crazy enough to challenge a trainer, so I just
No. So how long did it? So let's say. So give me the breakdown. Did you do 100 at a time? Did you do like in a day? Give me how you did. Because it was 500 for the week.
Yeah. So it was 500 for the week. So I did 100 every day except for one day because I got a little sick.
Okay.
I caught the coughing bug in the office, and so I doubled up one day.
All
so
right.
one day I did 200.
You did 200.
Yeah.
All right. So how long did it take you to do that 100? Give me an estimate. 100.
5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 minutes probably.
All right.
If that, like a lapse time, like giving it time to like walk it off and like catch my breath a little bit. So
Okay.
maybe even less. It wasn't long at all.
All right. So this is what I want you to
Probably
do.
less than 5 minutes.
So this is what I want you to do. So whatever time. When's your next 100?
My next 100 today.
Today.
Yeah.
I want you to time how long it takes you to do that 100.
Okay.
All right. And the next week you do it, it has to be 30 seconds less than what you took this time.
Okay.
So every time you do it, let's say it took you 10 minutes to do it. All right, now it has to be every single 100 has to be under 930.
Okay, cool. So I'll really measure that and get a good accurate measurement for what it was. Because like I said, I didn't really know, and I was just kind of, like you said, you gave me that hour time, so I'd like come back to and whatnot. It wasn't like because I was just using like a 9-step staircase.
Yeah.
So like
Now you were only counting up, right? You weren't counting up 9
Yeah.
and down
I was
8.
only counting up. No railing too.
I just want to make sure. Now also, let's add a little nutrition component on that. Are you going to try? You want to try Dr. Fung's program, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I've been it just really started obviously after last week's episode, and I've gotten pretty dialed in again. So
right.
I feel pretty good right now, and I've been sticking with it. So
what time do you usually get up in the morning?
I get up probably around 8.
All right, what time do you usually go to bed?
I go to bed at midnight.
Okay.
12:30.
What time is your last meal?
My last meal, I'm done around 7, 8 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, tops.
Well, done by 8.
Yes. Done. Yes.
I want you done.
By
so
8,
the only thing after 8 o'clock is water.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right.
All
So
right.
we increase the intensity.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then what time what's your first meal in the morning?
That's honestly, I've been kind of working my way up where I don't really eat until like 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 p.m.
All right.
And I just kind of in between like 4 and 8 or like,
So
whatever.
you're getting majority of your calories between 4 and 8 o'clock.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to every single day, and next week have this for me. Have a list of everything what you eat between 4 and 8.
Okay.
I don't need portion sizes.
Yeah.
I don't need to be like, listen, I had this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And we're going to dissect it. We're going to dissect that.
Perfect. All right. I'll do that then.
All right. So increase your intensity, and let's focus in on the food. Let's focus in on food log. And remember, for the listeners, last week you should have had that. I asked you for 7 days to keep that food log. So make sure you review it, and you'll be able to see. And when you look in this food log, I want you to pay attention to 2 things: the sugar content that you take in every single day. All right, and there's sugars in things that you don't anticipate. That's another thing that you'll find out on that free download that we're offering. And I want you to pay attention to the foods that have white flour.
White flour.
White flour. So sugar and white flour.
All right.
When you look on those lists and start to slowly eliminate those things, the quickly you can eliminate those things, or even if you can't eliminate them, minimize them. Minimize on how many days of the week that you have your sugars and you have your white flours. And on those days that you do have it, remember, don't go overboard. Don't go nuts. You know, people think that, if I'm great for 6 days, that on that 7th day I can do whatever I want to do. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4 and 3.
Yeah.
Monday to Thursday.
Monday to Thursday until happy hour. Then it's then all bets are off.
For sure. Well, all right. Tim, thanks. Thank you to Dr. Fung again. That's this week's episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
How do we end it?
All right, bang, bang.
There we go.
There we go.